MAPDAD here, taking in a new city. Not to see the fall colors or gauge voter sentiment ahead of Election Day, but here I am in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The Steel City, the city of bridges. I spent 5 full days in the city and the region checking out a lot of the sights. I landed in the afternoon and I had dinner reservations at the top of Mount Washington on the south side of the city. To get up the mountain, I took one of the oldest forms of mass transit around. The click and clack of the Duquesne Incline has been moving people up and down since 1877. Just a $5 round trip, but parking down along the river cost me $12. Once at the top, first a walk along Grandview Avenue to take in the spectacular vistas from several viewpoints. I had dinner at Altius. The crab toast, a great starter. The salmon dish, very good, though at high altitude prices, I think I expected to be wowed a bit more. Dessert was their take on a Take 5 candy bar with pretzels and peanuts around a peanut buttery base. It was good, not great. I checked in to the Hampton Inn. That was midway between downtown and the Strip District. All in with tax, $240 a night, which I felt was a good deal with breakfast each morning and free parking. My first full day in Western Pennsylvania was a day on the road. About an hour and 20 minutes from downtown to the Frank Lloyd Wright House Falling Water in Mill Run. Built for the Kaufman family, which owned a department store in Pittsburgh, back in 1937, the home designed to blend in with nature. $38 for a tour. The cafe makes a good toasted club sandwich. A great ending to just a beautiful scene. From there, it was an hour drive to one of the most moving places I've ever been, the Flight 93 National Memorial in Shanksville. On 9/11, MAPDAD had the chance to talk with a young man whose mother was a flight attendant on Flight 93. He was just 6 when he lost his mom, and the reality of that hit me as I listened to the call she had made to her husband after realizing the plane had been hijacked. With tears in my eyes, I walked the trail from the visitor center down to the wall near to the crash site. That site now marked by a boulder. Having also been to the 9/11 Museum in Lower Manhattan, this was just as impactful as the peaceful setting belies what happened on that tragic day. That night I wanted a true taste of Pittsburgh, which I found at the original Primanti Brothers location on 18th Street in the Strip District. I had the Pittsburgher with cheese, a beef patty topped with French fries, slaw, and tomatoes. Was it the greatest sandwich I've ever had? No, but was it worth having once? Absolutely. And at $10, it qualifies as cheap eats these days. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, has had an outsized impact on the city's history, and he did bring cultural touchstones to the region. The next morning, I spent the first part of the day at the Carnegie Museum of Art and Natural History. A nice display of art through the ages, and the Natural History Museum reminded me of my childhood, seeing the dioramas with the different animals at the Museum of Natural History in New York City. The coolest part, the dinosaurs on display. Just really neat to see. $25 the admission here. And another great museum cafe here. I had a chicken crepe dish with a mushroom sauce. That was excellent. The afternoon I also spent at a museum, the Heinz History Center and Western Pennsylvania Sports Museum, right across the street from my hotel. Yes, I learned all about the Heinz food history, and there were some very cool displays about the melting pot of cultures that make up Pittsburgh. But without question, my favorite part was seeing the original set from PBS's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Fred Rogers' Sperry shoes and sweater also on display. Pittsburgh, a huge sports town, and there were cool displays of highlights from the Steelers and the Penguins and the Pirates. $20 for the museum. Now, a lot of MAPDAD trips these days involve a concert. This one was no exception. Spoon played at the Roxy Theater in nearby McKees Rocks. And they rocked. 5th time for me seeing this Austin, Texas-based band. Day 4 was an effort to get educated on the industrial age here in the Steel City. For $25, I took a tour of the Cary Blast furnaces, taken offline about 4 decades ago. This is not a steel mill, but where the iron ore was produced that would then go on to the mill. And there's a certain beauty here, but also a poignant reminder of a way of life that once sustained thousands of families for generations. Driving around the city afterwards, Pittsburgh's a city of 90 neighborhoods, each I found with its own energy. I grabbed 2 slices of pizza and half a chicken parm sub at Minio's Pizza off Murray Avenue in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood. I was told it was some of the best pizza in the city, and I think I would agree. Catching up with a roommate from 30 years ago who settled in the burg with his family, a true highlight of the trip. On my last day, a tour of one of the great ballparks in America. PNC Ballpark, home of the Pirates. The ballpark sits at the foot of the Roberto Clemente Bridge. Pittsburgh, as I mentioned, city of bridges. These 3 downtown beauties, the Clemente Bridge, the Andy Warhol Bridge, and the Rachel Carson Bridge, named for the famed environmentalists. You can see their faces on the side of a downtown building. $20 for a tour of PNC, where we got into the dugout and up into the press box. Now, earlier in the week, I had found more Pirates history on the edge of the University of Pittsburgh campus. Not far from the majestic Cathedral of Learning is some of the wall from the old Forbes Field. If you do a little more investigating, you can find home plate inside one of the Pitt educational buildings. I believe it's Wesley Povsver Hall, I think it is. Now, after the tour of the modern-day Pirate home, a 5-minute walk over to the museum named after the guy who was a titan in modern art, and the name on one of the other bridges, Andy Warhol. Admission to his museum was $25. While a lot of his most famous works are at other museums around the country, there's a good amount of familiar stuff with the Brillo pads, the Campbell soup cans, and the silk screens of famous people. I found fascinating Warhol's work as an illustrator in the 1950s, which gave him the financial wherewithal to then go on to produce his avant-garde films. Continuing my last day delving into the avant-garde of Pittsburgh, I left the Warhol and walked uphill into the North Shore and Mexican War Streets neighborhoods, where I found a block of homes decorated on the outside. I discovered the city has an exile in residence program where artists can live. And around the corner, a home you have to see to believe. This is Randyland, created by Randy Gilson. It's, well, kind of hard to describe, but it's 40 years of this man's collections. A self-described master in the art of making something worthwhile out of what is seen as worthless. Doesn't cost a penny to look. Now, down the block is the Mattress Factory, a contemporary art museum. $22 to see 3 buildings of art installations. Some interesting things here that challenge your ideals and notions of what is art. I think at that point I was spent, as the city had a gorgeous week of weather, but this last day it was 88 degrees and I was pretty beat from all the walking. Still, I had a fantastic 5 days in Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania. I'm MAPDAD, hoping to point your travel in the right direction.